Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera kepada para hadirin. Izinkan saya meneruskan acara dalam bahasa Inggeris. Warm greetings for the day, dear ladies and gentlemen. How are you all doing? I, Dr. Shamilah Hisam from Parasitology Unit IDRC IMR, will be the webinar moderator for today. We welcome you all to the first IMR-SEAMEO webinar for the year 2024. Firstly, we would like to thank our invited experts for their timeless effort in preparing the presentations for today and their willingness to share their experience. Secondly, thank you too to the audience for being present today. Now, before we begin with the presentations, please allow me to brief the audience about today's webinar. Firstly, the theme of our webinar today is entitled Participation in Stool Microscopy External Quality Assurance Program. Is it worth it? There are two reasons why we chose this theme. Firstly, last year, there was a discussion between the National Pathology Services and IMR on how to improve performance and competency in the lab diagnosis of intestinal protozoa and helminths. Secondly, what measures should be taken to increase the quality of the diagnosis of ova and cyst? One of the suggestions from that discussion was to could we enroll in an EQA program where an EQA program would be able to measure the competency of the participating lab objectively and identify aspects of weaknesses that could be improved over time by the lab management team. So the quest is to decide whether an EQA program will improve the confidence and performance of a participating lab. Some preliminary decisions have to be made. Hence the question for any potential subscriber of an EQA program would be, is it worth it? Will there be a profitable return of investment or ROI if a government hospital enroll in such an EQA program? So this is what the webinar discussions is all about. And we hope the targeted audience present today will be those among clinical microbiologists, science officers, senior men, senior ladies, junior and senior JTMPs from primary to tertiary healthcare centers. This is a venue where we can discover what are the common practice in a government lab in their routine microscopic examination of fecal samples. And IMR will be sharing its ups and downs in our participation with some EQA providers of international standards for the past few years. Now, the norm of the IMR-SEAMEO webinar will begin with presentations from the first guest speaker over 20 minutes, followed by presentations of the second speaker, also over 20 minutes. Now, questions from the audience will be reserved after the two presentations are completed. However, we are pleased if the audience could pose the questions during and after the presentations by typing into the link shared in the YouTube channel, and the answers will be entertained by the guest speakers and myself if required. So, we are ready to begin the first presentation by inviting Dr. Tan Ruixin, a clinical microbiologist from Penang General Hospital. Dr. Tan graduated from the Royal College of Surgeons of Ireland in 2007 and further advanced her career in University Malaya and obtained her MPath degree in 2015. She is also active in research and has published numerous articles related to bacterial infections. Presently, she is in charge of the microbiology section of Penang GH, where diagnosis of ova and cysts is performed using wet smear technique. We now invite Dr. Tan to share her experience in this field. Thank you. Dr. Tan, you may begin. Yes.
For the kind introduction. So my title today is stool microscopy microscopy practice in Penang General Hospital and the challenges that we are facing in diagnosis of intestinal parasites. This is more of a sharing session, just to let everyone know what is done in our setting. So I'll start off with letting you know what the content of my slides will be. Okay, first we will start with just letting everyone know what is done in NGH. Then I'll go on to explain what is offered at the referral centers because most of our samples are actually sent out to referral centers, and then the challenges that we face, and then also what are our hopes for the future, how we want to improve our services. Next slide, please. So what is done in Penang GH? So when we receive the samples, what we do is we inspect the samples for any the color, the consistency of the stool. It's called the microscopy inspection. And then we also check if there's any presence or absence of blood, pus, or mucus, or if there's any visible worm that we can see in the stool itself. After that, we prepare the slides with normal saline. If it's necessary, we do add iodine because sometimes it helps with the visibility of the ova and cyst. Then we smear the mixed stool on the slide and cover it with a cover slip. And after that, our technicians will screen the slide under the 10 times objectives. If we see any worm or any ova or cyst, then we will examine it under the times 40 objective. Next slide. Okay, these are just some pictures of how it is done by our technicians in the lab. So it is done in the BSC. Then after that, we read it outside at the bench. So because of a lot of limitations, most importantly, the limitation of space. So we don't really have a section for actually reading the stool slides. So it is done at the outside bench. Thanks, next slide. Okay, so what is offered at referral centers? Most of the time, because of the limitations that we face, we have to refer our samples out. Because in Penang GH, we are only doing just it's more like just a wet mount. Okay, so what is offered at referral centers are stool FEME, which includes the wet mount, the fecal concentration, the trichome stain. So in Penang GH, like what I have described just now, we only do the wet mount. So we are unable to do the fecal concentration, the trichome stain, the DMSO stain, and the gram chromotrope stain. If the clinicians ask for stool for Cryptosporidium, Cyclospora, Isospora, where we have to do the DMSO stain, we can't, so we have to refer. Or if they are asking for Microsporidium, and we cannot do so because we need to do the gram chromotrope stain, we have to refer. And also the referral centers, they offer stool for ova and cyst, which is mainly the microscopy part, wet mount, fecal concentration, and trichome stain. So usually when we see something that we are not quite sure and we cannot confirm, we will still try and send it out for confirmation. Thank you. Next slide. So as you can see, the challenges that we face are quite a few. So this is just some pictures of how we have to outsource. We have an outsource unit which deals with all the samples that we need to outsource. So this is how they pack it. sometimes we put a little bit of ice so that the samples are not like too hot because they can get a bit compromised. Thanks. Next slide. Okay, so a little bit of elaboration on the challenges that we face. So like I mentioned just now, we are only able to perform the wet mount, okay? Due to space constraint and also a lot of staffing issues, we are only able to perform the wet mount. So when processing the stool specimen for ova and cysts, this may actually lead to false negatives. And also when we outsource the stool samples to referral centers, we are only able to outsource the samples twice a week, on Tuesdays and on Thursdays. So most of the time, when the stool sample arrives at the referral centers, they are not really fresh samples. So if you want the samples to be able to process, optimally, it has to be fresh. So the challenges that we face is we cannot send during weekends or public holidays because the referral centers are not open. So we cannot send. So when we keep the samples, it's not fresh anymore. The problem with this is the stool samples have to be sent fresh within 24 hours. And also we face the problems of identification of the ova and cyst. Why? Because for us, getting positive samples are actually quite rare. And it's very difficult to actually maintain a very high level of confidence when you don't see much positive samples. So in terms of competency amongst staff, when it comes to identification of the ova and cyst, it is a challenge for us. So this is actually the last section of my slides. What are our hopes for the future? So in the future, we are hoping that we have a dedicated lab space for parasitology. We hope that we have a room, if budget and space allows. It's best to actually have a dedicated space for just parasitology. Then we can introduce, and if the staffing issues can be settled, then we can have, more or less permanent staff at the parasitology area. So we hope that there will be availability of serology testing and PCR testing for intestinal parasites, at least at regional sites. Because right now, Penang will have to send to somewhere, a referral center in KL. So if we have a serology testing center or PCR testing center at a regional center, for example, for Northern region, then this will actually allow us to send the samples faster, and we can also allow the results to get back the results at a shorter time frame. So this will actually really help with diagnosis of the intestinal parasites. And in the future, we are hoping that we are able to train our staff more regularly. We hope that there's the availability of regular training sessions. And also, we hope that we can get some EQA materials from referral centers. So hopefully with EQA and also availability of regular training by the referral centers, we can actually achieve a higher level of competency among our staff. So this is actually our hope for the future. So this is the end of my slides. Thank you very much for joining me. If there's anything you need to ask, I think you can ask at the end of the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tan, for highlighting the common practices in microscopic identification of parasites in Penang General Hospital. Next, we have here with us Ms. Nurhainis Ogu Salim, who is my colleague in the parasitology unit IMR. She is a research officer, and her field of expertise range from identification of protozoa and helminths to the application of in silico modeling in anti-parasitic drug discovery research. She has been in IMR since 2009 and also an avid field parasitologist. Let us hear Ms. Anis, as we fondly call her, to share her experience and our experience in parasitology unit during our few years of participating EQA programs. Ms. Anis, please go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Shamilah. My name is Nurhainis, so I'm going to talk about the benefits and drawbacks of parasitology EQA program for stool microscopy. Okay, so this is the outline of my presentation. I will talk about the introduction, and then we will see how the subscription process for EQA, and we proceed with the performance report. After that, we'll talk about the benefits and drawbacks, and lastly will be the recommendation. Okay, as for the introduction, so WHO has defined the EQA or external quality assessment as a system for objectively checking the laboratory performance by an external agency. So this is also a requirement clause for ISO 15189 accreditation. So to conduct EQA is by periodically assess the lab performance to a peer group of laboratories, or is to assess the lab performance with reference laboratories appointed by the EQA provider. There is also another alternative for EQA, which is the interlab comparison, or ILC. So this is also under requirement ISO 15189, especially when an EQA program is not available or not considered suitable. So to conduct ILC is by participation in exchange of samples with other labs, or interlabs comparison of the examination results of identical IQC materials. Okay, these are the EQA providers available globally. So actually, there's a lot of EQA providers available, but this is only some of the example of the EQA providers. So to select the EQA providers, you must see whether the EQA providers is accredited with international standards, and also you can look at the websites to see the advertised list of tests that they offered. Right. So for IMR, we subscribe with the RCPA and also UK NICAS. So for stool parasitology is under RCPA provider under the microbiology. So we also subscribe with other disease, which is for serology tests for schistosomiasis, hydatid cyst, entamoeba, and toxoplasmosis. But for provider UK NICAS, we subscribe for the hematology program, which is for the testing of the blood parasites. So why do we choose this provider? It is because they are accredited. This EQA provider is accredited to international standards, and the diagnostic test offered by our unit is available with this by this EQA provider, and RCPA test method is all compatible to our method, and this is also for us to fulfill the ISO requirements. And besides, we have the subscription fee has sustainable financial support by our institution. So besides that, the provider also offers many advantages to diagnostic service. So this is the general process during the to select the for the participation. So first of all, we need to inform the institution for purchasing purpose, because this is the cost cumulative by the institute. And then once the IMR subscribe the EQA through Docker company, and the company will finalize and inform the EQA to commence the program. So then EQA will inform the participant on the expected date, receive sample, open and close date for submission of results. So during that time, we will process the sample and submit the results through the websites. And after about within a month, we will receive the performance score from the EQA provider. And we will, after receive, we will review the results and file it in the performance score will be filed in the EQA file. And then if our performance is low, The score will be discussed and comments for corrective actions. So at the end of the year, the performance report will be submitted to the ISO committee in the institute and presented in the management review meetings. So I will give you the example for RCPA program, RCPA EQA provider. So in this EQA stool parasitology program, in 1 year, they will give us 4 surveys. So for example, for last year, 2023, the first cycle is in February 2023, followed by the second one in May, third one in August, and the fourth one in the November 2023. So every cycle, we will receive 2 samples, which together with the clinical notes, either with they will mention the symptoms, the clinical history, or travel history of the samples. And sometimes they will also include the gender and age of that sample. So the sample that we receive usually in a screw cap container that contain 1 ml of fixed stool sample. So each stool sample, we will then proceed with our stool examination test, which is we will do direct wet smear, fecal concentration method, trichome stain, DMSO stain, and also gram chromatope stain. Okay, so this is the process for the for the stool sample itself. So when the sample arrives, we will appoint MLT to process the sample, where the MLT will record. MLT is the lab technologists that perform the lab personnel that perform the test. So they will record the sample in the specimen receipt book, and then this usually the stool sample from EQA is already fixed in SAF, so they need to wash and before they proceed to the next step, which is to perform wet smear and specialized stain. All the lab personnel must note that this EQA sample processing must be the same as the patient sample processing for diagnostic. And then for result reporting, they will examine the wet smear and stain slide. And then the report will be verified by verification officer and also authorization officer. And finally, we will report the result into the EQA portal. Okay, so this is the outlook of the portal for RCPA. So this example for you. This is how scoring was done by the RCPA EQA provider. So the score, they will give 2 marks if you manage to get the similar protozoa or helminths that is same with their report from the reference lab. But if you report incorrect pathogenic protozoa or helminth, minus 0.5 will be given. And then if wrong species identified by participant and false positive identified by participants, 0 marks will be given. But if the non-pathogenic protozoa identified, it will not be graded. So if you can see in the graph here, so this is example of reports by the RCPA from for one sample. So they will give the number of participant responses and the list of parasite that has been identified by all the participants. So our report will be marked by the blue dot here. So from here you can see whether you get you get the score of 2, 0, or the red one is minus 0.5. Okay, so from our 5 years of experience for enrolling into RCPA, so in our institute, we have a quality indicator performance, which is we need to fulfill that every EQA participation must be satisfactory or have a score of more than 85%. So if you can see here, from the cycle 1 is the average of from the result from the 2 samples, and then according to the year. So, so in total, at the end of the year, we will calculate the total of our score for each year. So as you can see, for the first 3 years, is a bit our result cannot fulfill the 85% EQA indicator, but after we manage to do the corrective action, we get the upgrade our marks to more than 85%. So why the reason for low performance for those 3 years is maybe due to the inadequate experience in stool microscopy examination. This is because our unit received low number of diagnostic test samples, and another reason is maybe because we only appoint one person to examine the EQA samples, and besides the inadequate internal competency training. Another reason is discordance result between the participant and EQA provider. So this is to show the picture that parasite that we identified, but not concur with the reference lab, so 0 marks were given. Right? So this is to show you that marks deducted because we reported microsporidian species in both in samples, but this is maybe because we entered the parasite that can be identified by other type of staining, because my microsporidian species usually use gram chromotrope staining for identification, but for this time we use the modified trichrome. So this is probably due to the different type of staining used. That's why they deduct 0.5 marks to us. Another reason for reduction is because we report the species name as Entamoeba histolytica, but the answer from the RCPA is Entamoeba histolytica /dispar. So for this one, we are unable to show the Entamoeba. To report Entamoeba histolytica, we need to show that the parasite is the protozoa is contain RBC inside the red blood cell inside the protozoa. So for this time, we cannot show them the picture of that particular parasite. So that's why we were deducted 0.5 marks because wrongly writing the report for Entamoeba histolytica. So this one is marked deducted because we reported hookworm and Strongyloid stricorellis, but RSPA answer is Strongyloid species. So hookworm is considered fictitious parasite by the RCPA, so they deduct the marks too. Right? So this one is to show the benefits and drawbacks of the enrolling of EQA. So basically, there are more benefits when you enroll EQA program, because from here weaknesses in the lab personnel can be identified for future improvement, and then we also can maintain and improve the optimum skill of the lab personnel. And enrolling EQA also can show that our result is a reliable result that produced by the lab, and this test performance will also fulfill the quality objective of ISO 15189. And besides that, there are also high recognition and confidence as lab diagnostic service provider. However, there are also some drawbacks that need to be addressed so that we can maximize the benefits of EQA. So the drawbacks is such as the limited volume of samples sent to us. So this will lead to difficulties in preparing the slides, and problems in terms of recognize the parasites due to the fixation of the samples, because morphological changes for the parasite may happen and lead to inconsistency of the result provided. And besides that, to execute corrective actions is quite difficult, especially when there is this disagreement in the results between the participating and reference labs. And another one is diverting resources from other important activities, because we need to allocate the time and personnel and also financial resources to perform the EQA samples. So as a summary, it is worth to participate in an EQA program, but however, you must consider certain things before you enroll. So which is first is to select the selection of the test and justification, and then you have to see the financial commitment, whether you can sustain or not. And then they also need to see on the adequate skill lab personnel, and you must look the provider whether they are accredited to international standard, and also to see at the frequency of the program, whether because the more frequent, the better the program is. So as a conclusion, by using the EQA performance report, it is good to improve your competency of the lab personnel. So with that, I end my presentation. So I will give back to Dr. Shamilah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anis, for sharing our experiences to the audience. I'm sure the audience will want to contact you for further queries later on regarding not only the EQA program that we subscribe to, but also maybe some examination techniques of the intestinal parasites that they would like to ask you later. Now, this we now begin the questions and answer session. We have here on the screen actually questions from the audience. The first question was posted to Dr. Tan, and the question is whether Dr. Tan would like to tell us more on the challenges in doing the stool FEME in Penang GH. Dr. Tan, please.
Yes, Dr. Shamilah. Sorry, I couldn't hear the question because it was, I think the transmission was not very good.
Oh, okay, I can repeat it. The question is, what are the challenges faced by Penang GH in doing the stool FEME, other than the ones that you discussed?
What are the challenges faced by Penang GH?
Yes.
Yeah.
In doing the stool FEM.
I think mainly the first challenge that we have is the space constraint, because that is the main problem why we cannot actually do a proper a full testing, to test for intestinal parasites, because I would prefer if we can do the concentration process, if we can add more staining methods, but because we don't have a separate space, it's not appropriate to actually do the concentration of the stool together with all the other samples on the bench where we are reading also fungal, BFMP. It's actually, yeah, so the main challenge we have right now is space and also staffing. So yes, if we can have that settled, then it would be actually good for a first step forward.
Any other aspects that you would like to highlight, Dr. Tan?
Sorry, Dr. Shamilah. The line is actually a little bit. Can you repeat the question?
I was asking whether there are any other aspects of challenges that you feel that we could highlight it here, other than space.
Other than space, I think we need to have referral centers at the regional sites. Something closer, like maybe just one center just to cater for northern region, so we don't have to send it, all the way to the central lab in KL. If I can send it somewhere in the northern region, it would be faster. I can send daily even, So we can get the samples there daily, which means I can send fresh samples, so diagnosis can be faster. Results we can get it back faster. So I think that is one of the challenges, and if we can settle that, that will also be a very good step forward also.
I see.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Tan. Next, we have a question from Ms. Lee Gyok New from Path Lab. And this question is addressed to Anis. The question is, do you face any issue on the EQA sample integrity? Anis, please.
Thank you for the question. So far, we usually receive the sample EQA sample. It's quite most of the time the sample is good. There's no any issues, but there's only one time that we receive the samples that are already has been dried, so we cannot process the sample. So for if this happens, what we do is we email the EQA provider and told them about the issue, and they said that other labs also we proceed with the next other samples. So most of the time the samples is quite good, and we can manage to do the slides and identification.
Okay, the next question is again to Miss Anis. The question is coming from, we can't see here in the screen. The question is, other than IMR, does the EQA program offered in other labs in Malaysia? Anis?
Okay. Okay. To answer your question is that IMR also does not offer any EQA program. We also enroll from another provider, EQA provider from outside. So if I'm not mistaken, in Malaysia, there's no EQA provider available for us to subscribe. So usually we will subscribe from overseas. That's.
Thank you, Anis. Next questions. We have two questions from the first question is on how long we can get the results after sending the samples to your lab. Dr. Tan?
Any lab to compare my results, right? No, actually we don't have any lab to compare our results with. So when we are not sure, we usually send to the referral centers for confirmation. So it is necessary, but I think the best we can do is to send it to the referral centers if there's anything that we are not sure about. But at the same time, we also discuss any cases that we have with all the other colleagues in the other states. Whenever we find something, we see something, we will discuss. But most of the time when we are not sure, we will send to the referral centers like IMR most of the time. Or IKN. Sometimes we send to IKN.
Okay, but looks like we are similar actually. IMR also depends on international EQA provider for our quality assurance of our samples. The next question just now was addressed again to Dr. Tan is how long we can get the results after sending the samples to Penang GH. I think they are asking about the TAT.
So, you mean how long we can get the results after sending the samples, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Usually when we send it to the referral centers, it will come back about 2 to 3 weeks time. We get, unless we sometimes we try and call or we really need it fast, then we can get the results maybe in a week or two. but most of the time it's about 2 to 3 weeks.
What about the routine fecal samples that were received from the
Oh,
wards
you
or the
mean the samples
outpatient
that sent
department?
to for stool, if they send for stool for OVA and cyst, we will actually read it the same day and release the results on the same day. Unless if the sample arrives somewhere after office hours and let's say midnight, then we will release it in the morning. But most of the time it will be released the same day.
Mm-hmm.
I think mostly after 12, then we will release it the next day. But if it's anything before 12 midnight, we will try to release the same day itself.
I see. What if the ward samples come in during weekends or public holidays? Is it also the same TAT of 24 hours?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you just now.
What happens when the fecal samples from the wards or the clinics come in on Saturday or Sunday or a public holiday? Will the TAT change?
Saturday or Sunday, we have microbiologists who will go in on the weekends. So it can be released on weekends also. But on the occasional cases when the sample arrives, let's say at night, maybe 9 p.m., and we see something, and then the staff is not very sure about it, then we will ask the staff to hold on, wait until the morning when the microbiologist comes in. Then we have a look again, and then we release. But if the staff, they are very sure of what they saw and they manage to get a good picture and discuss with the microbiologist at night, and then they are given orders to just release and inform the wards, they will. Yes.
I see. Okay. Again, there is a question to Dr. Tan from the audience. Do you have any labs to compare your results? Or is it not necessary? Meaning that I suppose the audience wants to know whether this is already endorsed as a policy of pathology services or is of your own initiative to compare
Sorry,
with other labs.
Sorry, Dr. Shamilah, can you repeat the question?
The question is, do you have any labs to compare your results?
No, we actually don't have any labs to compare our results with at the moment. So
I
if
see.
we're not sure, we will, or maybe opinion from other, we discuss in the group. If it's something very difficult or we are really unsure, we will discuss the case. Most of the time, we seek second opinion from the referral centers.
Right. So, well, we look forward. I'm always looking forward to further discussions with the National Pathology Services. And I think there will be a discussion soon on whether or not an EQA program, either provided by IMR or international bodies, to help out in the diagnosis of over and
Sorry, I
cyst service.
didn't hear that part.
The line is quite bad. It needs to cross the ferry, I
The
guess.
line is
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Tan.
okay.
In
You're
my
welcome.
yes, in my time here, looks like time really flies. We are nearing the 1 hour closing of the webinar. We still have questions pouring in, but unfortunately, time is not with us. So, for the audience, we would try to answer the questions, your questions, if you could email us later. And the email address could be viewed if you search the NIH Malaysia website. We take this opportunity and experience. We also thank the audience who were able to spend your time with us. Please subscribe to our National Institutes of Health Malaysia YouTube channel and click for notifications whenever there is a new post. And lastly, an audience links is also provided in the YouTube channel for those who would like to receive an e-certificate attendance. Let us meet again sometime soon. Goodbye And God bless you always. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you.